Let me be honest with you about something that almost nobody in the financial world wants to say out loud. Reaching $1 million in retirement savings does not automatically make you feel secure. In fact, for a lot of people, hitting that number makes them feel more anxious than ever before. And if that sounds like you right now, I want you to stay with me for the next few minutes, because what I'm about to share could genuinely change the way you think about your money, your retirement, and your future. My name is John, and this is Retire Smart, the channel where we help people turn decades of hard work into a retirement they actually enjoy living. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now and tap the bell so you never miss a video. We put out content every week that is specifically designed to help people in your exact situation make smarter, more confident decisions with their money. Now, let's get into this. You've spent the last 20 or 30 years grinding, saving, investing, and staying disciplined. You made sacrifices. You skipped vacations sometimes. You drove that car a little longer than you needed to. You said no to things you wanted because you had your eye on a bigger goal. And now you've hit $2 million. You should be celebrating, right? You should feel on top of the world. But here's what actually happens for a lot of people. Instead of feeling free, you start feeling a new kind of fear. You start asking yourself questions like, what if the market drops right after I retire? What if I live longer than I planned and the money runs thin in my 80s? What if something unexpected happens and I'm not prepared? What if I spend too much now and regret it later? This is what I call the retirement wealth paradox. You have done everything right by every measure. The math says you're in great shape. But emotionally, you feel more stressed about money than you did when you had far less of it. And here's the thing, you're not weird for feeling this way. You're not ungrateful, you're actually incredibly normal. I've seen this with so many people who've worked hard to build real wealth. And there are very specific reasons why this happens. Think about it this way. When you had $500,000 saved and the market dropped 20%, that was a painful $100,000 paper loss. That stings, no question. But when you have $2 million and the market drops 20%, that is a $400,000 drop. That's a house. That's years of your savings. The numbers are bigger, the stakes feel higher, and your nervous system responds accordingly. That's just human nature. On top of that, your entire financial identity is shifted. For 30 years, you were in accumulation mode. Your job was simple: earn, save, invest, repeat. You were playing offense. But now you're suddenly supposed to flip a switch and play defense. You're supposed to spend the money instead of build it. And for someone who has spent their entire adult life in saving mode, that mental shift does not happen automatically. It takes real work. And then there's one more layer to this. Your paycheck is either already gone or it's about to be. The safety net of knowing that even if the market tanks, a fresh paycheck is coming next Friday, that's disappearing. And without it, every financial decision feels heavier. Every purchase feels like it's coming directly out of your future security. Now here is what the research actually shows. And this part might surprise you. Studies that have analyzed decades of market data, we're talking 50 to 100 years of real historical returns, have consistently found the same thing. Retirees who follow a conservative withdrawal strategy almost never run out of money. And not only that, most of them actually end retirement with significantly more money than they started with. Let me put that in concrete terms for you. If you retire with $2 million and you withdraw 4% annually, that's $80,000 a year to live on. Based on historical market performance, that portfolio doesn't shrink over time. It tends to grow. Yet study after study shows that most retirees spend far less than they safely could. They leave experiences on the table. They postpone dreams. They say no to things they could actually afford, because fear is driving the bus instead of facts. Researchers have a name for this. They call it the consumption gap. The distance between what you could safely spend and what you actually spend. And I don't want that gap to be your story. So today, I want to walk you through 3 major mindset and strategy shifts that make all the difference when you're at this level of wealth. And then I want to share a simple but powerful framework that has helped real people flip their retirement anxiety into genuine retirement confidence. Let's get into it. The first shift is moving from accumulation mode into what I call retirement optimization mode. When you were building your wealth, the game was relatively straightforward. Pick the right funds, keep your allocation balanced, max out your tax-advantaged accounts, and stay the course through the market swings. That strategy worked beautifully, but at $2 million, that same approach starts to leave serious money on the table. The game changes. Now the things that matter most are things like tax location, meaning which investments you hold, in which types of accounts. You have 3 main account types: taxable brokerage, traditional IRA or 401k, and Roth accounts. Each one is treated completely differently by the IRS, and where you hold different types of investments can make a meaningful difference in how much you keep versus how much goes to taxes. You also need to be thinking seriously about withdrawal sequencing, the order in which you pull money from different accounts during retirement. This isn't just bookkeeping. The sequence in which you draw down your accounts has direct consequences for your tax bill, your Medicare premiums, and how much you ultimately leave behind. And then there's Roth conversion strategy. If you've got most of your retirement savings sitting in traditional pre-tax accounts, there may be a window of time between when you retire and when required minimum distributions kick in, where you're in a lower tax bracket. That window is an opportunity to convert some of those traditional funds into Roth accounts, pay a modest tax now, and set yourself up for tax-free growth and tax-free withdrawals later. Here's a real example of why this matters. Say you have $1.5 million in traditional retirement accounts and $500,000 in Roth accounts. When you hit your early 70s, the IRS is going to require you to take distributions from those traditional accounts, whether you need the money or not. That could push you into a higher tax bracket, trigger higher Medicare premiums, and reduce the tax-free inheritance your family receives. But if you spend the years before that doing strategic Roth conversions, even moving $50,000 a year from traditional to Roth during those lower income retirement years, you could save tens of thousands of dollars in lifetime taxes. That's the kind of optimization that becomes genuinely powerful at the $2 million level. It's not just about growth anymore. It's about keeping more of what you've already earned. The second shift is moving from rule of thumb planning to a system that's actually built for your life. When you had less money, the standard rules worked just fine. The 4% rule, target date funds, a simple 3 or 4 fund portfolio, those tools got you here, and they serve their purpose. But at 2 million and above, blanket rules start to become limitations. Your life is more complex, your tax situation is more nuanced, and the stakes are too high to leave your plan on autopilot. What works better is what I'd call dynamic planning, a strategy that adjusts based on where you are in retirement and what's actually happening around you. Think about how your spending actually looks in retirement. The first few years, your go-go years, when you're healthy, active, and finally free, your spending is probably going to be higher. You're traveling, you're doing things you waited years to do. Then as you move through your mid-70s, spending often naturally levels off a bit. But then you also have to account for the reality that healthcare costs tend to climb in your later years. A rigid 4% every year doesn't reflect any of that nuance. A dynamic approach does. You also want to run the what-if scenarios before you're actually facing them. What if inflation runs higher than expected for 3 or 4 years in a row? What if you need long-term care in your 80s? What if one spouse passes earlier than expected? Running these scenarios now, in advance, so you can see what happens to your plan under different conditions. That's what builds real confidence. It's not that you're planning for disaster. You're planning so that, if something unexpected happens, you already have a response ready instead of making emotional decisions under pressure. Another thing worth considering at this level is how you approach portfolio rebalancing. Most people rebalance on a schedule, quarterly or annually. But a more sophisticated approach sets specific tolerance bands for each asset class. When an asset drifts beyond its band, that triggers a rebalance. When it's within tolerance, you leave it alone. This approach tends to be more tax efficient, reduces unnecessary trading, and takes the emotion completely out of the rebalancing decision. These might sound like small details, but at $2 million, small details compound into large outcomes. The third shift, and this one is the one that most people don't see coming, is shifting from a scarcity mindset to a legacy mindset. Here's the reality that the data points to. If you've got $2 million, you're spending reasonably, and you're managing your withdrawals with any level of strategy, the real question is almost certainly not, will I run out of money? The real question is, what do I want to do with the money that's going to be left over? And this is where legacy planning comes in, not just for your heirs, though that matters, but for you, for your own peace of mind. When you get clear on what your money is actually for, when you define its purpose beyond just keeping you alive, something remarkable happens psychologically. Spending anxiety tends to drop. Why? Because you're no longer making random spending decisions that feel like they're threatening your survival. You're making intentional decisions that are aligned with a bigger picture. Maybe it's making sure your grandchildren can go to college without debt. Maybe it's supporting a cause or a charity that's been close to your heart for years. Maybe it's knowing that, if something happened to you, your spouse would be completely taken care of financially. No stress, no scrambling, just security. When you have that picture clearly in front of you, when you know your money has a purpose, both during your lifetime and beyond it, the grip of anxiety loosens. You stop feeling like every dollar spent is a dollar stolen from your future, and start feeling like every dollar spent is a dollar being used exactly the way it was meant to be. Now let me share the practical framework that I believe is the single most powerful tool for building day-to-day peace of mind in retirement. You may have heard of this one, but I want to walk you through it the right way because most people only understand it on the surface. It's the bucket strategy, and when it's implemented properly, it removes the single biggest source of retirement stress, which is watching your investment account during a market downturn and wondering how you're going to pay next month's bills. Here's how it works. You divide your retirement savings into 3 distinct buckets, each with a different purpose and a different time horizon. Your first bucket is your safety bucket. This holds 1 to 3 years of your living expenses in stable, low volatility investments. We're talking cash, CDIs, short-term bonds, things that don't move much when the stock market goes crazy. The sole job of this bucket is to make sure that no matter what the market does tomorrow, next month, or even next year, you always know exactly where your living expenses are coming from. You never have to sell stocks when they're down. You never have to panic. You just pull from the safety bucket while everything else stays put. Your second bucket is your income bucket. This sits in the middle of the spectrum, not as conservative as cash, not as aggressive as growth stocks. Think dividend-paying funds, intermediate bonds, balanced funds. The purpose of this bucket is to replenish bucket 1 over time. As you draw down your safety bucket to steps in to refill it. This is the bridge between your short-term needs and your long-term growth. Your third bucket is your growth bucket. This is your long-term wealth engine, stock funds, ETFs, growth-oriented investments. And here's the key insight. Because you have 1 to 3 years of expenses covered in bucket 1, and the middle-tier income bucket working to replenish it, your growth bucket can stay fully invested through market downturns without you ever having to touch it. You can let it ride. You can let time and compounding do their work. And if history tells us anything, markets recover. They always have. No guarantees about the future, of course, but 100 years of data showing the same pattern is about as close to a guarantee as investing gets. The beauty of this system is not just financial, it's psychological. When the market drops 300 points in a day and the news is screaming panic, you're not panicking. You know bucket 1 has 2 years of expenses sitting in it. You know bucket 2 is working. You know bucket 3 will recover. The system replaces anxiety with clarity, and clarity is what lets you actually enjoy retirement instead of just surviving it. Before I wrap up, I want to say something that I think is more important than anything else in this video. And I want you to really hear this. The biggest risk to your retirement is not a market crash. It's not inflation. It's not a bad withdrawal rate. The biggest risk is regret. There was a hospice nurse named Bronnie Ware who spent years sitting with people in the final chapter of their lives and asking them what they wished they had done differently. And one of the most common answers she heard, over and over again, was that they wished they had let themselves enjoy life more. They wished they had given themselves permission to feel free, to take the trips, to be generous with the people they loved, to stop managing and start living. I have never once sat down with a retiree who told me they wished they had been more conservative with their spending in their 60s and 70s. Not once, but I have heard many people say they wished they hadn't waited so long to actually live. At $2 million, with smart planning and the right strategy, you have almost certainly done the hard part. The math is on your side. The history is on your side. What's left is giving yourself permission to actually use the freedom you've spent a lifetime building. Be generous with yourself. Be generous with your family. Take the trip, make the gift, support the causes you care about. Live the life that all those years of discipline were supposed to create. If this video shifted something in your thinking today, please hit the like button right now. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who need to hear this. And drop a comment below telling me what your biggest retirement concern is right now. I read every single comment and I want to know what's actually on your mind. Share this video with someone you know who's thinking about retirement. You might give them the perspective that changes everything for them. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it right now and hit the bell so you never miss a video from Retire Smart. True wealth was never just about the number in your account. It's about what you do with the freedom you've earned. You've done the work, now it's time to live it. I'll see you in the next video.